I don't know. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Joy Lingerie, and I'm here today with our guest, Eric Madis. Hi, Eric.
Hi, Joy.
And we're going to get into his business and musical business here in just a moment, but I do want to give a shout out to Chad Christ at Luscious Moss Studio. He's been producing my music now for, yeah, I think it's going on 5 years, and he does a great job. I really appreciate it. And he originally was set up for drummer and guitarist, and since then, he's begun producing music. So if you have any needs to call him, you can find him on Facebook at Luscious Mouse Music. It is very creative and intimate kind of setting where you can do your best and get a darn good finished product. So give him a call at Luscious Moss Studio or Chad Christ on Facebook, and you can find him in the search. Thank you. With that being said, Eric, we're on. Last
Hey.
time you were on, it was over a year ago, I believe. I haven't looked it up to find exactly when, but you have an ongoing, very interesting career and things that you do with that guitar. I was searching for Dusty Strings because I know that you do work. Was it workshops that you do
Yeah,
with them?
I do a
Yeah,
monthly workshop
yeah,
every
and
month.
I couldn't find the name, so I couldn't find it. But I did say a well-known music school. Is all I could think of, so I apologize for that. So how did
If
you get
anybody goes
started?
to my website, they can find, if they're not familiar with Dusty Strings, they can go to
What
my
was that?
website.
They didn't call you directly?
Yeah, they can call me directly, or they can go to my website, or they look on Facebook, and things like that if they're curious about that type of thing. But yeah, they're Dusty Strings advertises those workshops, and they're different every month. So I teach a different subject every month, all related, but kind of
Okay.
a variety of different things.
Well, along with my new program, not to diverge here, but along with my new program, I have this banner moving across uh, that gives my website address and Luscious Mouse Studio. If this is driving you nuts, let me know. I can shut it off. So any
Love
input would be great. I
it.
got
Those
a typo.
engineers are worth their weight in gold.
Yes,
When you like them, when they work with you and they can really help you out, they're worth their weight in gold.
absolutely.
For sure.
All right, so let me get this on here. I got to say hello. It didn't go through last time. I'm not sure why. And I got stuff here I don't want. Oh, hold on. There we go. All right, so I'm ready for any incoming questions you might have for Eric. And I'm really happy to have you on the show today, Eric. So let's
Thank
start
you,
with how
Joy.
you got, you're welcome. Let's start with how you got started. Oh, hi, Rodney. Hold on, Rodney's living in Arizona now. Rodney, I'm about ready to come visit Arizona, and if I do, I will look you up. Promise. Do you know Rodney?
No, I don't.
Rodney Lander is a great fiddle player, and when he was here,
Mm.
he was playing casinos with the Hot Rodster, his band, and and he had a great lead who is on the recording that I prematurely sent you, and that was Drew Schneider. So. Uh,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I do have plans, Rodney, going out there. And I would love to have you back on again from Arizona because I'm sure you got some good things to say. All right.
Cool.
So, starting with just a little summary of how you got started, Eric, and what was your first instrument and your influences, which I know are many.
Yeah. Well, when I first started, well, first of all, when I was a little kid, I wanted to play trumpet, and my parents wouldn't. I had an older sister. She was 3 years older than me, and during in her younger years, she had gone from mellophone, which is like a French horn, to a French horn, to a viola, to a violin,
Huh.
and it had quit them all, in just a few weeks or a few months. And then piano, and she was kind of going along a little bit on piano. My mom we bought this old upright piano, and we had it down in the basement, and so she played a little bit. And so by the time I came along, and I'm only 3 years younger, my parents were so burned out on the whole thing, they wouldn't rent a trumpet for me or anything for the school band or any of those kinds of things,
No.
but it was in me, So when she got a piano, I'd go down to go down in the basement like almost every day, and I'd play that piano and I'd make stuff up, how kids are. You hold the sustain pedal down and you play, and it's just such a beautiful sound. You just kind of create things, and you actually think you're creating something of value. And maybe you are, but maybe you're not. But in any case, I did that. And so my mom then, when I was 9, she sent me for piano lessons with the same teacher who my sister had, and in 6 months I almost caught up with my sister who had been there for 3 years. That's the difference between someone who is really committed and really loves music and lives music, and things. I started on that, but one day I was listening to one of my dad's records, Marty Robbins' record, Gunfighter Ballads and Trail Songs, which I loved, and I was so moved by the guitar playing on there, which was Grady Martin, who was one of the great Nashville studio guitar players. I was strumming on a broom, and my dad walked into the room and caught me strumming on the broom, and he said, "Oh, wow." He goes, "Well, we got to get you a guitar." And my family didn't have a lot of money, So my dad went down into Denver to a pawn shop, and he bought me the Stella Harmony, a little 3/4 size Stella, basically plywood guitar. Those things are kind of awful, but I loved it. I just was blown away by it. And so I started playing guitar. My mom said, "Well, I can't afford to get you both guitar lessons and piano lessons, so you're going to have to decide, So I decided I was going to play guitar. So I had to quit the piano, which my piano instructor was really disappointed, but I quit the piano. But at that time, my mom divorced my father. And so we moved into Denver. We were living way out in the country in central Colorado. And my mom moved us into Denver, and I never had those guitar lessons. I've never taken a guitar lesson in my life.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm self-taught, but I bought books, I bought all the books and studied the books by myself. And my sister had a big, thick book by Joan Baez called the Joan Baez Songbook. And it was all these traditional songbooks from the American songs, of classic songs, of like Appalachian songs and folk songs and things like that, and blues and stuff. And so I learned a bunch of those songs from that book, just teaching myself. And, and that's how I started playing guitar. And I did my first performance when I was 10, in front of several hundred kids at about 500 or 600 kids at a theater in Denver. They were all day camp. These kids were all at a day camp, and I performed for them. That was my first performance. And basically, and I put together a band with a friend of mine in Denver about a year later than that. And, we had a band that did the Byrds music and all that stuff back in the 60s, and stuff. And so that's kind of how I got started, So a lot of my friends who knew me from my folk days and from my coffee house days and from those early days were kind of surprised when they kind of lost touch with me over the years. And then years later, I had emerged and I was playing so much blues, and they went, "Wow, I can't get over how much blues. You're a blues player now,
Yeah.
And that happened.
We have a question here. Stephen Marshall. Hi, Stephen. Glad you're watching. What is your funniest gig story or embarrassing moment?
Well, you know what? I've played a lot of gigs and I have a lot of them, but I'll give you one. One time I had a band in Colorado back in around 1981 called Ukiah. It was a country rock band. And we were actually kind of a southern rock band. The plan of the band was I moved back to Colorado from Dallas, Texas, where I had been in Dallas doing studio work. And I wanted to get out of Dallas and get back to the West, the real West for me, you know. And so I moved to back to Denver, and I put this band together with these guys, and we started gigging around. And over a period of months, we would add an instrument when we could afford, when we were doing enough gigs to add, you know, another guitar player, add a keyboard, etc. So the plan was to eventually have the band turn into kind of like an Allman Brothers type of band that played like country, jazz, and lots of blues, you know. And that was kind of sort of a Southern rock thing, but maybe more modern at the time, because this was 10 years after the Allman Brothers band had kind of started, you know. So this is, you know, but anyway, so that band's plan was to do that. So we were working as a country rock band. So we had these agents who would send us all over, like Wyoming, Nebraska, you know, Colorado, all over, New Mexico, you know, and stuff, and send us on these gigs, and they'd send us to these country western clubs, right? And so some of the clubs were less than enthusiastic about us, because we were like these like hippie type guys. You
Yeah.
know, walk in and they'd look and they'd see no steel guitars, no nothing like that, and they're like, "What the heck's going on here?" You know, and the agents used to lie to them and tell them, "Oh yeah, these guys play like steel guitar," because both myself and the other guitar player play bottleneck slide guitar. You know,
Oh, yeah.
so they go, "Oh yeah, they play steel guitar," you know, and it's like,
Oh,
that's a
no.
lie, you know.
No.
And then one of the guys, they said one guy played fiddle, and he played mandolin as a, you know, as a double. So the agents used to just lie, you know, just to, so they could fill the club, get their money and stuff. But it's the musician who's hanging out there
Right.
in the guff from everybody, you know, right?
Right.
So, okay, so we're playing this club up in northeastern Colorado, in Sterling, Colorado, and it's called Shad's Roundup. And I remember some friends of mine in Denver, I ran into them, and I said, "Yeah, I'm going to be playing up in Sterling. We're going to be up in Sterling next." "Oh yeah, I live in Sterling. Where are you going to play?" I said, "Shad's Roundup." They go, "Ooh."
Oh, sounds like
They
a
said, "You
Blues
know,
Brothers thing.
yeah," and they said, "You know, there's some other places that are maybe more appropriate for you guys." And I said, despite that, that's where our agent put us. So anyway, so we're up there at Shad's Roundup, and the guy who owned the restaurant, whose name was Shad, he had his wife hung out there all the time. He owned the place and would take care of business, but he wasn't actually there all the time. But his wife was there all the time, and unfortunately, she was an alcoholic. But she also liked young men, and
Oh,
so whenever here's the deal, so she would dance with all these young men in the place, you know, and she'd get like angry at the band for whatever reason, you know. And for on the first night, Friday, she had decided she hated us, you know, that we were a terrible band or whatever, and we were
oh
actually
no.
a really good band, you know. But anyway, so she put us through hell that first night, you know, telling us they were going to fire us and they were going to shut the electricity down and everything in the middle of songs and this, that, and the other thing, you know. And so we got through the gig playing everything that, you know, she requested, which as much as we could, you know.
Right.
And while she danced with all the young men on the floor, right? And just incredibly drunk, you know. And so the next day was December the 5th, which was a Saturday, and it just happened to be my birthday. And I got up that morning and I was so depressed because I thought, here I am. I, I gave up college to become a professional musician and, you know, stuff like this. And look at me now. You know, here I am at Shad's Roundup taking all this crap from this, you know, this
Yeah. They
owning life,
didn't have a lot going
a
for
depressing life, you know.
it.
And so, you know, so that Saturday night we go back into the club, of course, to play. And word had gotten out that there was this good band playing there, and there was a college in Sterling. So all of a
Oh,
sudden, all these college students turned out and packed the bar.
oh,
Well, of course, she was overwhelmed, not only because the business was good, but because it was filled with a lot of young men, you know. And so she's dancing with all these guys, and she's absolutely just, in heaven about us. All of a sudden, she's decided we're the best band they've ever had. Okay. And so we're playing along, and it came the end of the night, and it was 1 o'clock in the morning because you used to play then from 9 to 1, right? 4 hour
yeah,
gig.
yeah.
And so 1 o'clock came. We're ready to shut it down. Hey, thanks, ladies and gentlemen. We had a great time. God bless you all. We're on our way back to Denver now. Okay. Oh no, you got to play another one. Encore, encore, encore. Okay. Okay, yeah, we'll do one more. Okay. So we said, what do you want to hear? What do you guys want to hear? And they said, we want you to play something you want to play.
Oh,
So we thought, okay, let's do Jessica by the Allman Brothers Band, the instrumental, and because we'd been itching to do that song, and so we're playing Jessica, and the other guitar player was in the middle of his solo, but the other guitar player was really tall. He was like 6'4", very commanding looking guy. So the owner's wife, had kind of had a crush on him. And so he's in the middle of his guitar solo, and she's dancing right in front of him, right? And he's doing his best to ignore her. He's in the middle of his guitar solo. He is very serious about that. And so to get his attention, she reaches up and she grabs the neck of his guitar.
oh.
And he says, okay, I'm not going to say this here because I don't want to get you in trouble. He said,
You don't want to be blocked?
get your hands off of my guitar. I'll kill you, you bitch. And all of a sudden, everything falls silent. And I'm like, oh my God, we couldn't get through this thing because Mike wasn't, he had he was an edgy guy anyway. So when you messed with his guitar, he had this incredibly rare Epiphone guitar at the time, and you didn't mess with his guitar. So I knew something was going to happen. So there we are. It's like 10 minutes after 1. We're in the middle of this song. It got shut down. She's yelling at him. You can't talk to me that way, this, that, and the other thing. And we had this guy in the band, this drummer, Ed Contreras was his name, great drummer. And he had this huge drum set with all these percussion instruments. And it would take him literally an hour to set up and to tear down, to set up and an hour to tear down because he took his time, and everything. That band was packed up and out of that club in like 10 minutes.
Oh my
And what happened was, and here's the funny thing. So we hadn't collected our check yet, right? So everybody's packed up and ready to go, and I hear from this person, hey, Shad wants to talk to you in his office. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what's he gonna say? What's he gonna say to me now after this terrible incident at the end of the night? So I go into his office, and he goes, you guys are a great band. I want to have you guys back for New Year's Eve. He goes, what would you charge us? And I went, and I didn't want to come back. I did not want to go back to that club. And I said, well, we're busy on New Year's Eve. We're already booked. He goes, well, I talked to Tony, who's our agent, and she said, you guys are free. And I said, well, we booked through several agencies, and we're actually booked through another agency that night. He goes, well, if you change your mind, he goes, I want to have you guys back here. He goes, look, I'll pay you really well. He goes, don't worry about my wife. She's and he goes, I'll take care of her. And so that was it. But yeah, it was a crazy gig. It was a gig that I would have liked to have done without. But yet I enjoy telling the story now because it's just one of those many things that as a traveling musician, you can have these kinds of things happening to you.
I hear you. We've got another comment from Steve.
Yeah.
He says, Do you know Nick Beer's version of My Blues?
Hey,
There,
that's a
he's
friend of
hiding over
mine.
there.
That's got to be Steve Marshall who just
Yes,
commented.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
Hey, Steve, man. Okay. Steve Marshall and we met in my freshman year of college. He lived next to me in a room next to me. And I'm walking out of my room one day and I hear this guy playing and I look and there's this guy with a Martin D35 sitting, playing in the next room. And he was real good. And so he and I, he said, grab your axe. And so I grabbed my guitar and I went in there. We started playing, and uh, we knew a bunch of Neil Young songs together and Steve Stills and that kind of stuff, and things. And he was really into the blues. And I'd sort of started listening to blues back in Chicago right before that. But Steve really was sort of the person who got me into the blues. He was into it. He had an older brother into it, and so we listened to Lightning Hopkins and Johnny Winter and T-Bone Walker and B.B. King and Albert King and all that stuff. We were into all those folks. And he and I did a duet. Steve and I did an acoustic duet all the time I was there at Illinois Wesleyan University, and we've remained friends since then. He's a great friend of mine. And there was a guy who was a friend of ours who his name was Richard Beers, and unfortunately, God rest his soul, Dickie Beers, or just passed away just a month ago. And came to a tremendous. Was kind of a shock to both Steve and I. And but Dickie was a funny guy, and he played guitar, and he would do this imitation of old bluesmen, and he'd sing in the same kind of voice, and you couldn't understand a word he was saying. And that was the whole idea. He called it My Blues. He would play this thing, snapping the strings and everything like that, and then he'd sing. And he kind of made up these kind of vocalese type of sounds, but you couldn't understand what he was saying, and that was the idea. And he said, now he goes, the thing about the blues is the words are very important. You got to listen to the words, and then you couldn't understand a word he was saying, right? So that was the thing about.
That's what that's all about.
So that's what Steve's talking. So I think Steve is basically letting me know that he's here right now and watching.
Okay. Hi, Steve.
Steve's he was a good songwriter. Steve was a good songwriter back in college even, and I put one of his blues tunes on my second album, I think called The Shotgun Blues. So
you just sent me a clip of a song. It's something about. Is it something rag? Something word rag in it somewhere?
What was that?
What was that name of that little clip that you sent me about a song you just written?
Oh, you mean yeah, I put a ragtime tune
Ragtime.
on every one of my albums because I play Piedmont blues and ragtime a lot, finger picking blues. And so I put a ragtime instrumental on every album that I write. And the most recent one was the Gravity Rag. And that's that one.
Gravity Rag.
Thank you. Yeah.
So what I'm not into rock and blues as far as genre that I do. I mean, I do blues. I do things,
Sure,
but I don't know what ragtime blues is.
If you play country, you probably do a bunch of blues stuff, even though you might not think of it.
You don't know it. Yeah, they're related. So yeah. So what is ragtime?
Ragtime is an older music than, ragtime was the most popular music in America. And it actually occurred in the late 1800s. In fact, almost mid 1800s. It has classical roots, and it's got always an alternating bass, and it's mostly piano music, but it can be adapted to guitar. And so there have always been, people have played ragtime on the guitar in the 20th century. And the early blues, like Piedmont blues, has a ragtime influence. I'll give you an example. Okay, so So let's say here's if you have something that's got this kind of a bass line, that alternating bass is called, that's common with this what we call Piedmont blues, and it's got the ragtime feel to it, and it's got like sometimes has chords that come from ragtime. Like for instance, a traditional ragtime tune is a tune by Scott Joplin, who wrote a lot. He's probably the most famous composer. That you know that song.
Yeah. Yeah. That sounds like kind of like 1920s music.
Anyway, that's ragtime right there, and it was a big influence on early blues. So
That sounds like something I would have heard in the 1920s.
yeah, 1920s it was big, but even prior to that, yeah, absolutely. And so it influenced music for a long time. And even the first jazz pianists from the early jazz pianists had a lot of ragtime in them because a lot of them played ragtime before they played jazz. And the line between ragtime and jazz was very, very not finite. And it's the same thing between ragtime and blues, not very finite. And so you hear that influence in there. Like if you hear a blues like this, that kind of Delta blues doesn't really have the ragtime influence. It was considered more modern at the time. Whereas if you play something like this, that's got more ragtime influence in it. You hear the alternating
Yeah.
bass, it's more
Mhm.
chord oriented.
Huh.
So that's the thing. And so I usually put a ragtime instrumental on each of my albums, just as filler. And they end up being sometimes some people's favorite tunes on the records.
So can you play your song that you sent, or is that still in process? And
Well, I can. Since did you already play that Gravity Rag a bunch on Facebook or something? Or
no,
you?
no, I haven't. You sent me a clip, and it was an MP3, and that's what I was listening to. I didn't hear it on Facebook or anywhere else.
Oh, okay, all right. So, I mean, yeah, I could play a ragtime instrumental. I'm not very well warmed up, so but let me go ahead and move this down because I know the guitar pickers out there are going to want to see what I'm doing.
Right.
So,
I'm going to make this screen bigger. I'm going to just make me disappear.
okay.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is, you asked about Gravity Rag. That's my most recent one. It's actually not my best one, I think, but I'm still always liking it. So it's called Gravity Rag, and I came up with the name because originally I was calling it Torn and Ragged, and I thought that was kind of dumb. And then so I was going to call it a G-string rag, and I thought that's really dumb. And because it's in the key of G, and then I thought, what's in G? Oh, gravity. Oh, gravity. I like that because it's got weight to it. So Gravity Rag. Here we go. Okay, there it is with
Yeah,
all its
bravo.
mistakes.
Are
I
you,
wish I had warmed up first. That you notice I've got these two old socks on my wrist. That's to help me get warmed up because I didn't get a chance to warm up before
oh,
we had those
yeah,
technical problems, and I was
I
planning on
saw it.
warming up during that time.
Oh,
So you got to excuse me for some of the blown notes in there and stuff. But anyway, you can hear the influence of blues in there.
I could
Okay.
hear the influence of country. In
Oh yeah,
fact,
no, there's
it's
no doubt about that. The ragtime really influenced the development of the country style. The difference between Piedmont blues and country is very, very slight. You know, like for example, a Piedmont blues, I might just go like this. See? Now, the country guy like Merle Travis would mute his bass and make the chords a little bit more jazzy. So you got that instead of this, so it swings a little bit. Or they'll put you. So that shows you that how closely related they are. And so if you play Piedmont blues or ragtime, it's very easy to make the transition into that Chet Atkins, Merle Travis style, Jerry Reed, or and vice versa. All those guys do that.
the
Uh,
other thing I was hearing in there. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
hmm?
uh, the other thing I was hearing is that almost reminds me a little bit of how banjos are played as well. I don't
Yeah,
know what it is. There's something about the rhythm, or maybe the picking style, or maybe you could tell me more how that works.
the difference is yes, the difference is that with that style there, you maintain a bass, and the bass is separate from the melody. So, for example, the banjo style, which is closer to like a kind of it's kind of like a folk style. So a lot of people will say, "Well, I'm alternating bass like that in a folk style," and they're saying I'm playing Travis style, but that's not Travis style. Travis style, the bass is separate. So whether you're doing here, the E or E here, or E here, or here, the idea is to have the bass be separate from the melody, and you have to get used to it. It's kind of like learning how to juggle, or anything else, or it's like playing boogie woogie piano where you learn the left hand, and you play something separate on the right. So it takes a while to develop that skill. But otherwise, the difference between the banjo, I can definitely hear how guys like the guy who developed who kind of developed, who took the banjo from frailing and clawhammer, the old style banjo, and then was the guy who played with Bill Monroe.
I'm sorry, I can't help you here.
Oh,
You're beyond me.
now, oh yeah, oh God, he's one of the most famous banjo.
banjo players.
But he was considered innovative, and then everybody did it in bluegrass, after him. It'll come to me in about 5 minutes.
Of course.
But
I get that.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your on-course lines, your on-course programs online. Uh, you're the hour goes so fast with you that I never get everything in here that I like to get in on our interviews. Uh, so I'm going to have you back in 6 months if you're able to come. And
It would be my honor.
all right, thank you. So I know that you said you had 3 courses at this point online.
Yeah, I did 3 courses years ago in the
Oh,
sort of back around 2009, 2010, 2011. I put 3 courses online with jamplay.com. And this is when they first started. Jamplay was still a fairly new online company. They were being very successful, and they were expanding from using local people in their 2 regions, which were like around Cincinnati, Ohio, and Greeley, Colorado, which is
yeah,
about
I know it really is.
right. So they were starting to expand from local guys into people who were a little bit more nationally known instructors, and I had taught for National Guitar Workshop and things like that. So they asked me to come in and teach. I taught an electric blues course with them. I recorded a whole. I was there for a week, and I recorded like hundreds of lessons, each one being anywhere from 5 to 8 minutes long, right? So that course was successful. Then they had me come back later to do an acoustic fingerstyle blues and ragtime class. And then later on, they had me do a bottleneck slide class. And so those are still available online, even though they're kind of old by today's standards. There's still people who are signing up and taking those classes. I think they feel comfortable with me as an instructor or something. I don't know what it is about. They could put, like they could. Why would they take my electric blues when they could take electric blues from like Robin Ford, who's on True Fire? But they do take mine because I don't know. Maybe it's just the way I explain it, or maybe they just kind of, I don't know what it is. But anyway, so they've got those 3 classes, and just a few years ago, Jam Play got purchased by True Fire, which is this big company that's got all these big name instructors, and stuff on it. And so I'm in there with all those guys, and all those folks, I should say, as women and men in there. And got those 3 courses. And then, of course, I teach my monthly workshops at Dusty Strings Music here in
Yes.
Seattle. So those courses, every month is a different. One month will be this last weekend I taught fingerstyle blues, and we ended up doing Statesboro Blues by Blind Willie McTell. Sometimes we do Robert Johnson, sometimes we do Big Bill Brunsey, and all those names that you've heard. And then another month I'll do bottleneck slide, but I'll do the Delta style. So we'll do G tuning. And so we'll do Robert Johnson or Muddy Waters, one of those kind of guys. And then another month, I'll do bottleneck slide, what I call Southern bottleneck slide. And that'll either be an E or D tuning. And we'll do more of a Kokomo Arnold, Elmore James, more modern Dwayne Allman, Johnny Winter even type of slide. And then another month, I'll teach flat picking the blues. So I'll teach people the urban style, something, like this, where they're going up. So that kind of thing, flat picking blues.
I think we got a name. Earl Scruggs. Steve said Earl Scruggs.
Yeah, Earl Scruggs.
I know him too.
Synapses were working kind of slow today. But anyway, so I teach urban blues like that, acoustic urban blues. And then I teach let's see, so there's the urban blues, there's my bottleneck slide Delta, bottleneck slide Southern, fingerstyle blues, and then jazz blues. I teach a jazz blues class, so they get a chance to teach jazz, but always a blues in jazz. So because I wanted some consistency in my classes, so they could be advertised as blues classes. Because I used to teach like what they call American swing, so it was
Yeah.
basically like American songbook standards, old swing jazz tunes, and teach people how to play those chords and how to solo over those chord changes. And then to help them advertise the classes, that they could just say blues every month, with Eric, and then they can get a different thing every month.
Speaking of blues, I don't. I hope I'm not embarrassing you when I say this, but for you people out there who might be listening, either right now live or later on, the people on Facebook from wherever you're listening from, whatever country you're listening from, uh, Eric has been 26 times, he told me, nominated for blues, but he's never gotten to number one. So let's help him get to number one in
Thanks.
2025.
I almost kind of don't even want to now,
Oh,
because at this point I'd rather just say I got nominated this many. If someone one time years ago, I was when I was like I had been nominated like 16 times for
no.
best acoustic blues. And I was talking to this one woman who was one of the officers from the Blues Society, and I told her that. She goes, and she was fairly new, and she was like, well, "That's really sad." And I said, "No, it's not sad." I said, because I said, when you win it that year, it's a popularity contest. Who's ever hot that year?
Yeah.
I said, I'm much more honored by the fact that people keep voting for me year after year after year, saying, this guy's the best. And so even if not everybody agrees with that, it's kind of like, well, how many people have gotten that over all those years and gotten nominated all those times? So she said, well, man, isn't it kind of like Susan Lucci or something? And I said, not at all, because, again, it's about popularity. It's not about,
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Yeah.
So I hope you do win.
Well, thank you, Joe.
At least one
I
win.
appreciate the plug, maybe, who knows? Maybe I will. I'll have to completely rethink my strategy once that happens.
Yeah, I do. Do you know Chris Egger?
Yeah, I know who he is. I don't know him well personally, but he and I are friends on Facebook, and yeah, I know of him because he's sort of an up and coming blues guy in the area.
And his blues versus some of the stuff that you're playing today sound more almost. I don't know. I say country, but his blues are cleaner, clearer.
Mhm.
So how did that transition happen? Have you noticed that, or in today's blues that is a different sound? It's almost
No, if you were to hear my electric blue stuff, and you can go hear my electric blue stuff, you'd hear a lot of similarity between what he and I are doing.
okay.
You know what I mean? So
Where do I find it? Where do I find it?
if you just go into YouTube and you look for Eric Madis and you type
Okay.
that in, you're gonna see me playing with a band, and you're gonna hear me playing electric guitar, and it's a whole different thing than what I'm doing here.
Okay.
And I love that. And if people think that, a lot of times, because I can perform as a solo, I get a lot of gigs as solo, and stuff, and because I sing, and stuff. But so a lot of people have often thought of me as an acoustic guy or an acoustic blues guy, but actually that hasn't been my main focus for most of my career. Most of my focus was electric guitar, but the beauty of playing acoustic is that you're independent, and you can do a solo. It's nice to do a solo, it's fun. And
Speak for yourself, Eric. I struggle.
yeah,
I don't have all that picking technique. And
well, and that's why a lot of people take lessons from me. They take lessons because my whole life, even when I played solo, I always made a point of making a guitar solo in every song. I won't play a song if there's no guitar solo in it. And so for me, it's like if people like when people take lessons, I've worked with a lot of singer songwriters who said, "Hey, I'd like to play my own solo on the song rather than having a backup guitar player." And I go, "Well, let's work on that. Let's get that done." And it's just a matter of understanding the chord structure and the melody structure of what you're doing, and learning to improvise within those chords. And if you're finger style, you have to learn different voicings of the same chords all over the fretboard, you know. And so, yeah, it's not that hard, and you need to learn your scales, and you need to learn your chords, and you can do it, and
I do it. I don't do it as well as I like to, and I feel much more comfortable. Even if one person's up there with me, whether it's a cajon or a bass player or another picker. I mean, another rhythm player. I mean, anything. Prefer lead, but I don't always get that. And then they add to what I'm not able to do, and I can't say that I'm anywhere near the level that you're at. And I've had 3 instructors in the last 4 years. One passed on to greener pastures, and he's teaching lessons in another place. I
wow.
don't know if you know him. Right now, his name is after Dave Nichols. And
Oh yeah, I know that guy's name, but
yeah,
I didn't know him personally. No.
he used to play as a lead in my band for a while. And then I have Chad Chris. I have Chad Christ, of course, who's my sponsor. He's been giving me lessons.
Yeah,
Uh, I don't know if you know this guy. He's more country than blues. Lyle uh, hmm, Ronglin.
I don't know him.
Yeah, he also started too. And I wanted different things and different kinds of personalities. Like for me, if you're not patient, you're going to really be frustrated.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you have to be when you work with people on guitar lessons. Um, you have to dig into where they're coming from, who they are, what their and what their goal is. So with
Right,
me, I always try to find out who you are, what you're doing. I'm interested in knowing everything about you, because to be a good teacher, you got to help this person achieve their goals. And it's not about you just giving a lesson that you've given to 1,000 other people, and here's your handout, and now get the hell out the door, or something like that,
right.
and
Well,
give me my money. I
my
think it's
strategy was like this. I went to 3 different people for 3 different things. With
mhm.
Lyle, I wanted to know some modified entries into the song because country has licks. They have very well known licks into a song.
Yeah, just like with blues or jazz or anything else. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
yeah. And when you hear the lick starting, you know what song they're gonna, they're playing. And now I'm not very good at it, but I managed to get by.
No,
Yeah,
that's important. It's important to have good introductions and good conclusions,
right,
because as a leader of a band, which you are, and you're
right.
the singer and the leader of the band, often, whether you work with charts or you don't work with charts, somebody has to kick it off, and you don't want to have one, two, three, four at the
That's not me.
beginning of
I'm
every
the
song,
rhythm player.
or one, two, three, four. You don't want to be doing that, all the time.
Right.
So you got to have an introduction played on the guitar or whatever the
That's
lead.
why I hire a lead.
Yeah, yeah, but
I'm not the lead.
they have to do it at the right tempo or with the right feel, otherwise the whole song's off, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm still working on that. And then with Dave, so Ron Ling did that for me. And then Dave is country, and he was teaching me the country called a cage system.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, you've heard of it. We never
Oh
did
yeah.
get
That's just the general guitar thing.
yeah,
Mhm.
we never really got through and completed that because he decided to leave and go to greener pastures. And I doggone. And then Chad's been working with me because I am just not into rock, and I wanted to learn how to bring that a little bit of that flavor into my music because it's moving that way in country. I
Mhm.
mean, what is
Oh
that?
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, what is that gal? Is it Rihanna? There's some gal that some famous rock singer that
Well,
is
Rihanna's kind of a rhythm and blues. She's a famous rhythm and
is she the
blues
one that
artist.
moved into country and
Yeah, she's
yeah,
put out a country album. She's
yeah, that's her.
thinking of doing another one too. So yeah. Well, the thing is, I think the problem with that approach is that I'm not so sure it's really coming from the individual as a true means of expression or just something that either number one, they're just trying to prove that they can do. Hey, I can put a country album out, or something like that. Or this might be a cool thing to do once, or twice. But if you really are a country artist, like which you are, then I can definitely understand wanting to play the entire spectrum of country if you're into it. If you're into it, but I don't think there's anything wrong as an artist having a really strong identity, even if it's real traditional. Like look at a guy like Chris Stapleton or something like that. His popularity is because he is what he is. He's not like all the other folks
Right.
out there, and
Right.
stuff. So
Well, the thing is, I never liked the older country. Oh, God help me. I mean, there was a lot of good songs. Don't get me wrong,
mhm.
but to have a steady diet at that and that older, slower country for me was pure hell. When I first started playing in right around 2000, when I started with forming a band, and what really turned me on what to country was the 80s and 90s and
Oh yeah.
up to about 2015. I
Oh God, yes, like Ricky Skaggs and Vince Gill and all those
yeah,
artists that came out during that period of time, and Alan Jackson and
yes,
and
I love
Pat
Elvis.
Gillis and all these people like that that
Even George Strait. I mean, I don't know that he
oh
ever
yeah,
really
George
played
Strait,
that guitar, but he had wrote great songs.
for sure. I love all that stuff. I love that stuff. Even though I'm not a country musician, I absolutely love all that stuff. I have played a lot of country, as I mentioned
Oh,
earlier, and it's been an influence on me. And I like any kind of music. See, for me, I don't listen to music in a genre. I'm not
yeah,
like, I don't have a prejudiced ear when it comes to the genre of what I'm listening to. For me, what I'm listening for is integrity and quality, and I love good musicianship too.
right.
And so a lot of country musicians have really good musicians on the albums, and like in the old days, you had mentioned the old days. Well, a lot of times some of those singers didn't appeal to me so much, but I like the people who were playing with them. You
Yeah,
know
yeah.
stuff. So, just from my standpoint. So yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I like
Hey,
country
Vince
rock.
Gill,
I
I saw
like country
Vince
rock.
Gill back in the 1980s
Who?
here at the Riverside Inn.
Oh, I played there.
Did you?
Yeah, I played there.
Yeah, that's a cool place.
Oh
And
yeah.
they had a thing called a Rising Star Concert. And I forget what it was. It was some radio station that always would have it. And Vince Gill was just a rising at that time. He was not a well known guy. I had actually opened for him once in Denver when he was in Pure Prairie League. And I was doing a solo at a club there called the Mercury Cafe. I had every Monday night I played there every Monday night. And I just ended up being there as an opening act that night when the Pure Prairie leagues. So I knew of Vince Gill, and when he started to go solo in country, I heard that he was playing here in Seattle, and I went to see him, and of course he was great, and he played up a storm on the guitar and he just sung like a bird. But this is something you'll appreciate, and if my friend Steve Marshall's listening to this, he'll like this too. The guy who played steel guitar with him that night, he says, "Hey, take another solo, Rusty." And I went, "Oh my God, that must be Rusty Young." And Rusty Young was a steel guitar player we had used to listen to in the band Poco. back in the 70s. They were like a country rock, really good country rock band, and Rusty Young was their steel guitar player, and he actually worked with Buffalo Springfield before that, and stuff, and he has since, I don't know what Rusty's doing. I don't even know if he's still alive, but anyway, that's kind of funny,
Yeah. Well, Vince Gill is just so multi-talented. It's just
Yeah, he's terrific and a very open-minded musician.
yes.
I that Greg Allman concert he did was just great. He was fantastic in there, and Ricky Skaggs is the same way, open-minded, loves all kinds of music. These guys are great musicians.
I
So,
love all kinds of music. It just sounded like you. I can't play it or sing it.
well, it's one step at a time. Keep practicing.
I haven't got that many steps and time left.
You got a few. You got a few.
A few years.
But it's yeah. So no, I don't always do like finger style. I don't always do finger style, and I don't always do like I play bottleneck slide a lot, and stuff. But a
Is
lot
that
of my
when you take the beer bottle and slide it?
yeah, I've done that before, but that's not my regular slide. I actually have a slide. I use either a metal slide. I've got brass slides. I've got steel slides, and I've got these
Oh,
porcelain
yeah.
slides like this.
Yeah. Well, I tried to learn enough of slide to do the intro to Boot Scoot and Boogie that Brooks and Dunn do. They don't always do
Yeah.
it, but they do have it. And I managed to kind of do it. And then I found Drew Schneider from the Hot Rodsters, and he does play a slide, and he was able to do it. I kind of showed him what it was like, and then he just took off. And it's just an amazing what you can do on a guitar.
It is, yeah. A guitar is the most amazing instrument there ever was, because especially with electrification now, I mean, the guitar by itself is a percussion instrument. It's got the percussiveness you need, so it could be a drum. It can be played fingerstyle, so it's like a piano. It can be flat picked, and not only is it a rhythm instrument, but then it becomes like a horn, and if with distortion and stuff like that, it becomes like a saxophone,
Yes.
And I mean, really, the guitar can do it all, and the other instruments are kind of jealous, and
Yeah. Well, we're almost to the end here. I can't believe it. I don't know. You and I start in and it just flies by, and I never get to everything I want to ask you. But what's coming up for you? What have you got?
I'm in the middle of recording my 6th album, which is my first in 15 years.
Wow.
Because I mean, I was like, I had a son who's going to Berklee College of Music, and that cost a lot of money.
Yeah.
And stuff, and they're just things that came up over the number of years. And I got enough mileage off my last album in terms of gigs and things like that, to where it finally, as it started to really dry up, I finally said, Eric, you got to put another album out, and I had enough original material for 2 albums. So I'm just in the middle of my latest one, my newest one here. And, so I'm doing that right now. I'm recording that at Jack Straw Studio in Seattle. And some of it will be sent to a drummer who lives up in Bellingham named Jay Tate. He's going to put his drums on it, but I also have Brad Stoll on a few tunes. And Mike Eichison is playing bass on that. And he plays both upright and electric bass. And I'm doing all the guitar work on there, acoustic, electric, and bottleneck slide, And so that's.
How about gig-wise? What do you got going there?
Pardon?
Gig-wise.
My next gigs, I'm starting to book festival gigs for the summer. Like I've got the Wedgwood Arts Festival with my band, with my trio and things, and I'm playing, and also Port Townsend Vineyard, and I've been doing that also as a solo this summer. And I've got I play at the airport at the SeaTac International Airport twice a month as a solo.
Does the word Toby mean anything?
Toby Brady, yeah, A
Yeah, he's
really
really,
cool guy, and really does good sound. And he's I know him also as a performer and a songwriter, and
yes.
travels around, as a solo act, and he's got a drum that he kicks while
Yep.
he plays the guitar. And yeah, Toby's really cool. He's really big part of that Gigs for You, that was the company that sponsors me and your friend Dave Harmonson. He plays
Yes.
at the
Yes,
airport
he
too.
does. Yep.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
And so I gig there, and then I play a place out in Monroe called the Route 2 Tap Room, and I play all over as a solo. And so I recommend, if I'm unless I have my little calendar in front of
Yeah.
me,
How can we find it?
but all you have to do is go to ericmadis.com, and you can see any dates that I'm booked, and the dates that I'm teaching my workshops and all that kind of stuff.
Can you put something? I think you did just recently. Can you
Mhm.
put something on matured musicians to when they come up?
Yeah, I always post
Yeah, I see
whenever I have a
that.
gig. I try to post it on mature musicians too. Yeah, definitely. I share most of my stuff with you, but if
So
I'm good, I'm not always good about getting every gig out
yeah,
there.
that's all right. We know where to find you. Know.
Yeah, thanks
We're
very much.
we're about 2 minutes over. I hate to say it. I hate to end
Okay.
it, but I'm afraid we do. But I do want to have you back. I know you're welcome anytime, but just reach out to me if you got something that you want to put on before
Hey,
6 months and
next time I'll play
anytime.
more bottleneck slide for you.
Oh, lovely. I love it.
Maybe I'll get an electric guitar out here, and I'll do some chord solos and
It's
stuff.
a deal. I'll hold you to it, Eric.
Go, what does this guy do? What kind of an artist is this guy? And then it's just like, well, I just am who I am.
All right. Well, thank you so much for showing up today. Even though we had a little
Yeah.
sound problem, we did make it.
Yeah, we were a little worried about that, weren't we? I had to
All right.
switch computers. Fortunately, I have two laptops.
Yes,
So,
we had to get one to work.
well, thank you very much, Joy. I really appreciate you doing this. Yeah, it's a really nice service that you do for
Thank you.
your
Thank you.
fellow musicians,
Thank
and
you.
it really is very generous of you, because a lot of musicians don't think about other musicians, and they just think about themselves. So I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Eric. May you have a good rest of your week, and I will be talking to you before long.
Okay, you take
All
care.
right. Bye
Bye,
now.
everybody.
Thanks for tuning in. That's it. I don't have anything until February 3rd. We have a young lady called Megan Story. She's going to be with us. She is now producing some of her music, and please tune in 2 o'clock on Monday, I believe. I don't have my calendar, but I believe it's February 3rd, somewhere close to it. But you'll see it advertised on all on my website and so forth. So I'll keep you informed. In the meantime, take care, everybody, and thank you for tuning in. Bye bye.